So, welcome. I'm going to ask you a question to get started. Did you know that over 40% of your behaviors are habitual? And if you consider that, it can be a bit scary and maybe hopeful because most of those behaviors are subconscious and we're not even aware that we're practicing them and even forming our own identities through our habits on a daily basis. When you know, though, you can't turn a blind eye to the fact that, huh, maybe I could be causing myself some problems here. So, what does this have to do with habit development and motivating yourself to change and becoming your best self, your highest potential? It has everything to do with habit change. What I want to share with you tonight is how you yourself can not only are the importance of finding out what it is you actually want to develop by practicing this habit and what you want, why you want to do it. So, this might seem very elementary, but unless you have these foundations, you won't be able to envision what you want and you won't be able to be motivated when you are tired, when you just don't feel like it. There's a lot going on in your life emotionally, physically, environmentally. You need to have these two things down pat. And then, third, I'll be sharing with you practical steps to motivate yourself to change and make these habits stick. So, I'm really excited to get into this. And I'm really happy that you're here. Welcome. If you haven't met me yet, my name's Amy Engelmark, and I've spoken to over 1,000 audience members and worked with many healthcare professionals and business leaders and business owners throughout Canada, into the States, into Denmark and England. And it's my pleasure to be able to help people achieve seemingly insurmountable professional dreams and goals with more energy and calmness and joy. And people leave feeling grounded and balanced. So that's a little bit about what I do. And my hope and desire for you, and my belief that is that even after a short period of time together tonight, you'll leave with practical steps that you can apply and start seeing a difference in your own life in the areas where you want to change your habits, which, when you think about it, is quite profound, because with just a small change, you can shift your whole family life. You can improve your communication. You can get better sleep. As a healthcare leader, you can eat more meals consistently that are maybe homemade. You can feel more connected with your spouse. You can make less mistakes at work, all with just a slight shift in your behavior. So I want to share with you first, we'll get into the training now, some of the benefits you can expect. So, myself personally, when I'm motivated to change and I start to solidify new habits in my life, I don't know about you, but I experience more peace of mind. I experience calmness in my physical body as well as emotionally and in my relationships. I experience much more self confidence and a sense of that I'm progressing. As well, it makes me feel really good because I'm a positive example to my family, my kids, to the colleagues that I work with. So, all of that's a great motivating factor for me. And as I teach you and share with you the points that I'm going to cover tonight, I also am going to be sharing with you a story or two from my own life as well as clients' lives, especially an OBGYN that I worked with in the past. And you can see how what was possible for one person is also possible for you. So let me encourage you right now to get your pen and paper out, or if you have your phone and you like taking notes there, to get ready, because I teach like a fire engine and I'm going to give you a lot of information, and it's something that you'll probably refer to later and reread and maybe even listen to this recording again after we're done. So if you're a note taker, now's the time to get ready. First thing, first point, I want you to write down the destination you hope to get to. And what I mean is the outcome you hope your new habit will produce for you. So let me give you my past client's story. I'll call her Anna. When we started working together, she wanted to make more time for regular exercise. She was really disappointed that she couldn't keep up a routine. She wanted to get better sleep. She found that she was working on charts and doing paperwork late into the evening most nights. And she wanted to have more close friendships, and she wanted to have a closer spiritual connection. So I want you, as I start sharing this story with you, I want you to start noticing where you might connect with Anna. So she wanted this balance, but she really didn't know how to start mapping out a plan so that she could see change in her life, right? Just going to grab some water. And we quickly started uncovering some of the obstacles in her path. And one was her beliefs. This was a big obstacle. So one belief that she had was, she said, I'm kind of embarrassed to admit it, but I think I really am believing that people who need X amount of sleep are lazy. And you shouldn't need that much sleep. And therefore, if you believe something like that, you're going to judge yourself as well if you are getting more sleep and you're judging others for the same thing. She also was thinking things like, well, I can't ask for help because that would mean that I'm incompetent and maybe I do have weaknesses and I don't want to look at that. And plus, it's going to put a burden on others, whether it's staff at work in my clinic, whether it's my husband at home who already has stress he's dealing with at his job. I feel like it's just going to stress other people out. And so she would make up these stories in her mind, these assumptions, and she wouldn't check with reality. She would just believe them. And I know that. I can do that for myself. I've done it for myself. I'm sure there are blind spots I still have, for sure. And that was one of the things that we worked on, was removing limiting beliefs, removing those blind spots, those insecurities and doubts that had her completely procrastinate on the very habits that were important to her. She knew what she needed to do, as you probably do. She knew what she wanted to do and what changes would help, but she wasn't moving forward. So we started looking at her mindset. We also started looking at, where are your expectations of yourself just out of line? They're just out of whack. They are unrealistic, and they're actually causing you pressure. They're actually making it difficult for you to feel good about yourself because you can never meet those really high, unrealistic expectations. So you always feel like a failure. And when we unraveled and clarified where she was not where she was pretending she wasn't a human, really, without limits, then she could be more kind to herself. She could be more self-accepting. She could be more patient. She started giving herself permission to make mistakes. Permission to, this is a key point, permission to, instead of all or nothing, to sometimes do all or something. You know, if it's not perfect, then what could I be happy with? Could it be 15 minutes of that activity? Could it be not produce the result that I'm looking for the first time around, but the third or fourth time I start seeing progress? Could I be okay with that? Could I be more patient with myself? So her communication skills started improving, because instead of believing her assumptions and her fears and her anxious thoughts, she started talking about them out loud with people and getting confirmation or clarity from others that, oh, that's easy for me. I don't mind helping you. Or, yeah, I was wondering when you would stop trying to do it all and ask me for my help, because you pay me for it already, but you haven't been asking me. So I'm happy to say that she now deals with so much less stress and is feeling spiritually really connected, as well as really much more deeply connected in her marriage. And she made a big professional move that took a lot of courage. And it was all possible because she started believing in herself and taking small, tiny steps instead of having a grand vision for herself of the change she wanted and then never following through because the vision was just so big that it was overwhelming. She started to break it down. And that's something that's easy to forget, that you could just be like an ant and move something forward slowly instead of trying to carry a boulder, which isn't sustainable. So the first step again, describe the destination. So what's the end result of the habit that you would like to be practicing on a regular basis? And I'm going to open up for a little bit of feedback right now. If you want to unmute and share with us, what habit would you like to start practicing moving forward and be a regular part of your life? And then what would it be like to live that life? So how would your life be better because of that new habit in place? Would anyone like to share?
Okay, I'll take the plunge and
All right.
share that it's sort of mundane. And it's not quite New Year's, but I've got the physical activity habit that we all sign up for. But um, I just see that it's a progression. Like you give the example of the ant and the stone. That wherever I'm at, and not in a bad place compared to where I was 10 years ago, but I just need to see that progression and keep moving that further ahead. Um, I'm not going to be on the podium in a triathlon, but I just want to be better, faster, stronger, more nimble next year and next year and next year.
Awesome. And I have one more question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay. So if you were noticing progress and you kept feeling more and more nimble, and I think there was another descriptive word you used, what else would be possible? Like who else would benefit, and what other kind of opportunities might open up for you because you've been practicing that habit?
So I jokingly referred to being on the podium for a triathlon. So that's sort of like the unachievable target, but the intermediary gains are being able to participate without being, for example, overly tired or exhausted in general family activities. Being able to go for a bike ride, not for 20 kilometers, but maybe 50 kilometers. Being able to enjoy things with my teenage kids who are young and vibrant and very healthy, thankfully. But I say instead of falling behind.
Right. Yeah. So being able to keep up and where they're not whipping you in a bike ride or a run or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get it. I have two teenage boys. Thanks for sharing. Thanks, Hamza. And uh, is it Amal?
Yes.
Did you want to share, Amal?
I can't say that at present I have a specific goal that I'm working towards, but I just kind of, I have a lot of small ones that I'm trying to decide which one to focus on.
For tonight's example, is there a habit that just won't leave your mind, or you just keep getting drawn back to the desire that you wish that was part of your regular routine?
For sure. I'd say, like you mentioned, the sleep is a big one that I feel like I constantly, although it can be kind of, it's like a small thing, to me, it has like a massive impact, as I think with everyone it does. And I was actually in that same mindset of I need a lot of sleep. And so I always felt guilty about needing that much sleep and that sort of thing. So it's something that I think is like hugely beneficial. And I just can't stick to it for some reason. It just keeps, I get to a good sleep wake schedule and then it changes very quickly. And then I get back to it and then it changes very quickly. So that would probably be the most prevalent.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing. So it leads us beautifully into the second point that I wanted to share with you, which is your why. When you are not feeling like exercising, when you're not feeling okay, comfortable about giving yourself permission to get the sleep that you'd really like, that you know you would benefit from, it's important to know why bother doing it. Why is my desire, why am I going to let my desire win out over my feelings or my sense of energy right now, or whatever excuse that you would like to use to dash your deeper desire, to overthrow it? And be really specific about what will be possible when you are practicing this new habit on a regular basis. Like, you really need to know why bother. You need to know your why. For example, I have finished writing my book and I'm now in the midst of editing it, but it's been a slow go, way slower than I would have liked it to be. I would have liked to say I finished last year. And when I was thinking about the time we would spend together tonight, I was thinking about how important it is that I finish this book so that people I may never meet will be able to have breakthrough because of something they read in my book. And people who may never hear me speak will be able to have experienced transformation on a deep level because they read my book and then they reread chapter 3 and then they reread that action step. And that motivates me so much more than just finishing editing chapter 3, right? Practicing our habits can be really boring and bland sometimes. And we might not feel motivated at all, but if we have a bigger purpose, like Hamza, I'm just thinking, if you've ever thought generationally, 7 generations down the line, of how your health now will impact your great great grandchildren and the stories they'll be able to tell about you because of your habit now. And the same for you, Amal. Like, how is your habit of sleep going to impact your whole community? Like, think so much bigger about the real reason you want to have this habit in place. And don't edit what you write down, because the judger is one of the biggest voices in our minds, and it can stop us from writing down what our heart really knows to be the truth, what intuitively we know is the answer for our why. So let's get into some practical steps. We need to keep things simple if we're to stick to it. So first off, do not try and start too many habits at once, literally one thing at a time and slowly. Eventually you'll be able to make leaps, but right now your job is to make this so simple it seems stupid. So the first week you might not go to the gym, but you might get a membership. Or the first run that you go on might not be 30 minutes, but it might be 5. And you go and get a coffee. And you feel good about the amount of energy that you put out because at least you got your clothes on, you told so-and-so you weren't available, and you prioritized yourself. Someone was talking about small wins. You need to have many small wins to change your identity. And if you don't change your identity, like, I'm a healthy person, I'm a consistent person, sleep is for responsible people. Responsible people sleep. If you don't change your perspective and your own identity, then your habits will never stick because you'll be butting up an internal wall. For example, when I didn't believe that I was a creative person, I experienced a lot of blocks in how many solutions or ideas I could come up with. And the reason I didn't believe I was a creative person was because my mom and one of my brothers are painters and sculptors. And I thought that's what a creative person is. But I'm creative in my relationships, in my communication. I'm highly creative. So be careful that you start small, because that starts to build a new identity. And James Clear, in his book Atomic Habits, if you haven't read it, it's fantastic. He talks about how every time we check mark, okay, I've moved forward, I took one tiny step towards implementing that habit again, acting on that habit. It's a vote towards our new identity. And when you think about an election, you don't have to have more than, you don't have to have 100 votes for someone to win. You have to have the better odds. And so the more that you vote for your new identity, the new version of yourself, you're going to start believing that you're capable of so much more. So start small. It'll be sustainable, right? All or something. When your mind says, oh, I can't do an hour of it, or I can't get an hour extra sleep, or whatever it is, you can say, well, I'll get 15 more minutes tonight. All or something. You might not think that this is a practical step to habit development, and especially motivation, but working out will actually help you stay more motivated, because we know that we experience increased levels of dopamine and serotonin when we exercise. And especially in the morning, when I exercise in the morning, I feel like I'm more grounded, more calm, less stressed, more focused, and I'm much more likely to be in a positive state of mind, which enables me to believe in myself that maybe I could make time for that. So get moving, get active, and you'll stay more positive and be able to support yourself in the goals that you're creating, right? So a couple more really important points here. I don't know about you, but fun is a really important aspect to my life. And I just got back from playing disc golf with one of my teenagers and my husband, and I'm not very good at it, but I really enjoy it. And in order for us to maintain our habits, people who are, the research that I've studied anyways, people who are happier are more productive. They enjoy healthier marriages and close relationships. They're more successful in their professional lives. They enjoy better health, faster recovery times. So I don't know what comes first, the chicken or the egg, but research says that happy people do better overall in life. And if that's the case, then if you're enjoying yourself in your work life, or if it's your personal life that you want to change your habits in, you're much more likely to stay on track when you're enjoying it and it's fun. So some of the studies that were done in James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, was of cyclists who would reward themselves right after. This is part of the habit cycle, right? We have the trigger, we have the actual habit, and then we have the reward or the response. And you might want to Google that that formula that he uses. It's very simple and very interesting. So the reward is a really important part of this cycle. They would eat a small piece of chocolate after every cycle that they did, which seems kind of counterintuitive, because if you have a health goal, maybe you don't want to gain weight, you want to gain muscle, depending on what your desire is, right? But if I was to say, edit my book for 30 minutes, or I was to give myself permission to get together with a friend or sit down and read a book and not feel guilty about it, then right after I practiced that habit, I would think, what's the reward that would just really do it for Amy? So think about what reward would really do it for you to cement in a new habit until it becomes second nature. I know that one of my clients said, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I never give myself permission to play a board game. And I love board games. Another client didn't give herself permission to sit down and read. It had been so long since she'd picked up her book that she'd been halfway through for almost a year. So what would do it for you? What's your type of reward? And then be consistent with that. Don't say, oh, well, I only did it for half an hour, so I'm not going to reward myself. Then you'll be staying in that hard to please, it's got to be perfect, it's got to be all or nothing cycle. This one really hits home for me. This is the last point I want to share with you, one of the practical steps to motivate yourself to change your habits. And it's actually taking responsibility for what you're committing to. So if I use my book analogy again, my book example, I might say, I am choosing not to make myself available so other people can have breakthrough. I'm choosing to stay invisible so that people can't be helped, and literally take responsibility for that. Or if I was to not practice a habit that I know would be a great learning example for my kids, I might say, I'm choosing not to be a positive example for my family today, which is one of our greatest motivators. It's one of our greatest motivators when we're acting out of integrity with who we want to be. So literally saying out loud what you're choosing not to do and making yourself see it and be honest with yourself about your choices might be what does it for you. Sometimes people are very motivated by pain, and some other people are very motivated by pleasure. So see what does it for you and play around and make it a bit of a game. Test out some of these strategies. At the end of your life, right? I read this quote. It's great. At the end of your life, you won't regret the risks that you took and failed. You'll regret the risks that you failed to take. And even though you might think, well, this is just a small habit, it still is a risk. It still is you getting out of your comfort zone. It still is you being courageous. But you never know how good your life can get unless you get out of your comfort zone. We're going to end there, and I'm going to open it up for Q&A for a few minutes if you have any questions before we wrap up, or any insights you'd like to share. But before we do, I would love to open up 20 minutes of my time for you each privately. If you're interested in mapping out a few steps that you can take and have my focused attention on your life and the habits you want to develop, so that you can also feel really great about your progress and really proud about your progress and confident and like you're the example that you want to be for your patients, for your staff, for your family. So if you'd like to take me up on that offer, what I'm going to do is in the chat box, I will put my email, but you probably have it because you're both signed up for this. This is where you would contact me, and we'll just set up a 20-minute chat, coacha@amyengelmark.com. So you can copy and paste that. And yeah, it would be my pleasure and my gift, no strings attached. I'd just like to support you in achieving the life you want to be living right now. You're welcome. So I'll open it up now, and would love to hear your feedback. Would love to hear what maybe your top insight was, if you have any questions. So feel free.
I just wanted to say I actually really enjoyed this last part that you mentioned about the taking responsibility for the outcome of your habit. At first, when you were mentioning it, I kind of like assumed that you were going down a certain path with it of being like create accountability in your space or something like that. But I really liked how it actually is kind of flipping it to be the negative outcome if you don't do it. I'd never thought of that before or heard of that before. And just as you were saying it, and the examples you gave, those like really resonated with me and made me feel like, oh, I should be writing a book. I feel bad that I'm not doing this. I'm not a writer, or English is not my strong point. I will not be writing a book, but it really struck me very strongly, that point. So I really appreciated that piece.
Good. Yeah, it really hits home for me too. I was writing about it just before hopping on, thinking, we don't want to be hard on ourselves and we don't want to put ourselves down, but it's so important that we're honest and clear with ourselves that if I'm saying no to this, or if I'm saying no to this, then I'm saying, yes, something else is okay with me when it really isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Awesome. Thanks for the feedback.
Thank you, Amy. That was, as you said, practical, and it's seemingly simple, but I think there's some nuance there. So there's a lot of opportunity. One question I have is about the reward cycle, and you gave the example. It's classic example of the exercise and the chocolate or something like that. Just a very, very practical. So again, another very mundane question about this is that sometimes I find that after going, particularly because you mentioned the disconnect between the healthy and the reward, even if it's like a little bit of that, say, you give the example of chocolate. So I like chocolate, and so I would go, maybe sort of go for a big run or big workout, and I find at those times, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, that's not the reward that I want. I don't want to sit down with a bowl of ice cream or a bar of chocolate. And in fact, it's you're feeling pretty good. You get that dopamine, as you said. You're feeling really great afterwards. So I sort of have trouble with that because it's almost like then I sit down sometimes. I say, well, you know what? Maybe I'll have the chocolate first, the bowl of ice cream first. It doesn't always work out quite that well. So I don't know if you had any comment about maybe is there a wrong link there between the reward type? Or certainly for me, I find personally that if you sort of reward yourself first, say, hey, I better take this reward now, and then it'll motivate me to do that thing, which doesn't work for me.
Oh, I was going to ask Hamza if it did work for you. Because it's interesting that you brought that up. Sometimes that has worked for me. So I will go out and get myself a nice drink and then do the thing that I said I would do. But what comes to mind for you right now is if you're you're obviously very clear that, okay, I've gone on this run or I've done a great workout and I'm feeling fantastic. Actually, I'm feeling really good. Mm-hmm. Then you sound like you know yourself well, and you're very self-aware, and you could ask yourself in the moment, what kind of a reward do I want right now? Is it to go home and tell my kids that I did this and tell them to tell me I did a really good job? Do I want acknowledgement from people right now? Do I want to, as a reward, because I feel so good, do I want to phone my staff and tell them, don't book me at this time on Friday, I'm going to do it again? Right? Am I kind of going to stand up for myself and ensure that I get to do it again this week?
Okay.
So there could be a number of different rewards, but you know yourself best in the moment. Maybe right now, even things are coming to mind that would make you feel rewards that would work for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, you sure. No, those are great points, because we find that time becomes very precious, and other people's control over your time is more and more of an issue for many of us. Mm-hmm. And so using that would be a pretty strong motivator, right? To say, well, you know what, I'm going to cut myself some slack. Yeah. As opposed to cut myself a slice of pizza or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So
good, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So my bonus is a little bit more time off for this again, or for to take my kid out or something like that. Mm-hmm. Okay, so any questions before we round up? I want to share with you that this series of workshops is something that I've been doing since late September. And I am hosting one every 2 weeks, which you're more than welcome to attend again. I think that I don't have my list here of upcoming workshops, but I think my next one is on learning to ask for help so that you don't get buried under your work, something like that. So today, obviously, I don't have the time to teach you everything about habit development, but one thing that I want to say that is a really great opportunity for you watching right now and anyone who will watch the replay is to start understanding where your blind spots are and what excuses you're telling yourself and using as your scapegoat to not take action. And that takes some digging and discovery with someone else, whether it's a coach or whether it's with a good friend or your spouse who's not afraid to challenge you and give you a fresh objective perspective. But it's really fun when you start getting to know why you're holding back, because then you can do something about it when you put your finger on the area where you're stuck. So I would encourage you to look at these notes and ask yourself, where's my biggest area of opportunity? If you're ready for growth and you don't want to keep saying, I can't make time for that, or I never seem to be able to stick to that habit, let me help you move whatever obstacle is in your way out of the way and take me up on that 20 minutes together. It'd be my pleasure. Okay, enjoy the rest of your evening, and hopefully we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Good night.
Take
Thank you.
care.
Good night.
Bye.
Enjoy.